All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lunch and Learn today. I'm Jeremy. I'll be leading our call today. Happy to answer any questions that we may have if we have anything. We've not received any pre-submitted questions that I saw, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them up in the chat, and I'd be happy to discuss anything that we've got, anything we're curious about. Let me go over some of the usual things and then give some people some time to log in and ask some questions, and then we can get started. So, a couple things you can check out. Always highlighting, check out our YouTube channel, posting up for videos, our lunch and learns, and other pieces of new content up there. Just put a video up this morning about the different settings on data structures. So there's some pretty interesting stuff in there. If you're curious about some of the more advanced settings, what they do if you've never quite understood or maybe didn't understand how some things work in data structures sometimes, put up a video up on that. We also have our solutions marketplace, great place to check out if you're curious about any other applications and decisions, a bunch of pre-made projects that you could install and take a look at to either be used right away or to use to kind of help give yourself some ideas or some other things to build with. And then lastly, we have a few different events. We've been highlighting some things coming up. So if you're curious about upcoming events, then you can check out decisions.com/events. And over there, we've got our biweekly roadmap reviews. So every other Tuesday, if you're curious about upcoming features and things, we've got an AI webinar, which is tomorrow. So if you're curious about this AI stuff, that's tomorrow. And then we have another one next month with Foster's supermarket chain that is discussing how they utilize decisions. So that is July, near the end of July. So if you're curious about any of those, you want to register, definitely check those out. That's decisions.com/events. But otherwise, we can go ahead and um, get started talking about some things. So, doesn't look like we have a lot of people in here today, and I still have no questions. So, if you have anything, just let me know. I could just kind of poke around, show a couple things a little bit um, while we're here. To highlight some stuff. So, a couple things I can point out since I just mentioned that we have that video now about the data structures and all the different options for it. If you've never messed with data structures and all of their settings, there are quite a few useful settings when you first create data structures on the side here. And I think especially if you're not sure what to look for, or maybe you're not even looking for anything, these can be a little overwhelming. And especially for newer people, they're definitely overwhelming. But there's quite a few neat little options in here, and the more options, or you have more options, the more complex of a structure you take a look at. So right now I have a case entity. Case entity has pretty much all of the options that most of the other structures have. So there's quite a few different things that you can take a look at within here if you're curious about some of the settings. Like you get to set up the case ID, prefixes, and length and stuff like that. Since it's got folder behavior, you can actually set how the folder behaves. Things like the action bar across the top, you can actually make it hidden if you want to on any of the folders that get created for this, stuff like that. You have the ability to have it show in the tree. So if you select show in tree, then any case entities you create will actually appear in the folder tree on the side. Or if you don't want them to appear, you can make sure that that's off, and then they'll only appear in the middle. So some stuff like that you could definitely utilize and make changes to. Enable process mining is how you would enable process mining and things like that. So if you're curious, if you ever wanted to use process mining, this one is unique only to case entities. So none of the other structures have enabled process mining. But checking this is what allows you to actually really easily directly link everything that you build in here with the process mining tools and everything. So that's another neat way that you can directly link with our process mining tool if you've ever tried using that or wanted to use process mining. So that's a really cool one. Let's see here. All of the actions on the bottom are different right clickable actions. And in a lot of these, they're going to be off by default, but there's a few. I don't think I changed this one actually. No, I might have added the delete action. But some of these are off by default and you'd have to turn them on. But just by simply right clicking and some of the things that as a designer you might see when you right click on a flow, for example, and you can move the flow, delete the flow, and things like that. With data structures, some of those you have to add yourself, or at least allow to be added as options. So the ability to add new case entities by right-clicking, the ability to delete them or edit pre-existing ones, the ability to move them or change permissions, all of those things can be, those options can be added or removed if you're trying to add or remove those items. So you can easily do that. The ability to change states on case entities is another option here that's available only to case entities since they have the states built into them. So stuff like that. A lot of cool, really, and pretty useful right-clickable actions that you have available to you within these. And then some of the like lower ones, like folder extensions and things like that, they have less options. So you don't see as much. Like this is an entity, so they only have three of those actions: to add, delete, and edit. And the other options are not available there, and they have significantly less. But most of them are, most of them have some of like the similar things. Um, Hide and search, category order, base type, type name and description. Those are available on everything. And then as you kind of increase in complexity, you start to add more options, batch loading, caching, lookup lists, some of these actions and things like that until you get to the case entities like I was just showing. So a lot of really cool ones. Another one that's sometimes useful if anyone's ever seen, I know we like to highlight a lot in training and quite often point out some of our in our documentation over data structures. There's a difference between data structures, and the database structure does not have configuration folders by default, but that means you can add it later. And I think a lot of people don't know how to actually add the configuration folder there. And so in the settings for a database structure, the actions enable actions option, by selecting that, it actually creates the configuration folder for that database structure. So now I'll actually have a database structure configuration folder that I didn't have before. So then if I want to, do some of the things, user actions and things like that, that I have the ability to use with configuration folders on a database structure, I can do that. And that's just a simple right click on that data structure and making sure that I check that box. So pretty cool things. Uh, and if there's anything else that anyone's curious about, I can point out a couple other settings and things. Looks like we do have a Q&A question. Oh, what is audit changes checkbox? Yeah, audit changes is right here. The audit changes checkbox. Essentially, what this is going to do is it'll take like anything that you save, anytime you're saving data into this entity, and this is available on pretty much everything, I think, except for flow structures, since flow structures don't save to the database. But database entities, folder extensions, case entities, all of those, I believe, have this option. And basically, anytime that data gets saved, it's going to make an entry in the audited entities table so that you could track those things. So it'll actually save any saved data that you make, will track that data in the table in the database. So then you can pull from that table to track any what kind of changes and things were made. So you can easily monitor those changes. All right. What is the table name? I'll have to double check. Oops, I didn't mean to go there. Query. I believe it is the audit entity table. It might be this. Let me see if I can confirm. Yeah, I'm fairly certain it's the audit entity table. I don't have a lot of things in here, so I guess I could just make a quick save of this case entity and see if that changes that. Let's do that. Edit structure, audit changes. Right. And let's even just Where's my flows? Pull up just a quick test here. Types, case. Let's just create one of these real quick. Throw this in the cases folder. All right, run that real quick. And let's just do like another one and just update it right after. Take one, just a couple other things to test here and see if that changes that table. Now we'll find out what other entity it could be. Um, PHP. That's what it's supposed to do. Wrong one. Oh my gosh. Too fast. There we go. Folder ID. Off that. What did I do wrong? Okay. Probably was that. That's fine. I will fix that later or check that later. We'll see if this did anything. Open up that again. Identity, select query. Okay, maybe it's not that one. That's rule audits. Interesting. Okay. I might have to take a closer look. Um, Maybe I'll come back to that. We got a couple other questions. I might come back to that. I don't know if uh, Jasmine, if you can find if we have that written somewhere in documentation or not. It wouldn't surprise me if not, because this is very niche, but maybe if we have it somewhere. But we'll come back if we find it.
I can look into it.
Thank you. All right. In the meantime, let's go on to our next question that we have, and we can come back if needed. Next question is from Alexander. Hello, I want to use decisions as an API caching systems. I need a way to store data in a table. Then I need to have the table drop certain records after a certain amount of time.
Yeah. So generally we have an API that's really slow. And so if I could cache that information, I don't know if you guys already have a way to kind of seamlessly do that with API calls, like where we can, if that same information is asked again, instead of like reaching out to the system, it just gives it to you because it's already stored or cached somewhere else. If not, I was assuming that we have to create a table, then kind of start storing the data there, and then make a filter that kind of references what the user might ask, and then filters out what we already have in the table. And if that is the case, then I was curious, can I set like rules to or functions, no, I guess, sorry, stored procedures that kind of go off automatically that clear the essentially the cache because the data will be bad after 24 hours or so.
So there are definitely some like caching like steps and things like that that you can actually do. Um, Not caching cache. So there's definitely some steps and things that you could easily do to like set these things. Slightly depends on like the version, but there are steps that you can even literally just use a put in cache step and like cache some values if you want to. And I believe you get to set like how long
Now, I
they
also need this
are.
to be available to all users. So like if somebody else also queries the same information, like it gets the information from that cache, right? Um, that's another piece of it. And that's why I was assuming a database would be necessary. But if you already have a subflow, that'd be great. I'm sorry, a step.
Yes, I mean I believe um I've never actually used this step. It's actually a somewhat recent step. I'm trying to find if I know exact specifics of some of this, but I believe I would maybe play around with the like see if you can use or I guess what version of this of decisions are you in first? That might be kind of important.
I'm in version 9.
The most recent version 9?
Yep. Oh
Okay,
no, not the most recent, just the first version 9. We kind of stayed there for a bit as we were cleaning up um the issues that came because we migrated from version 8. I want to say
hmm
like the early version 8 all the way to 9.
got it. So you're like 9.0 or something like that then?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay,
I
understood.
probably can check.
Then yeah, these might not be available because I think this was added in like 9.6, so maybe those steps aren't the best option there. Um, but I believe those are there to make that concept a little easier because you can just manually place your data into the cache and then get from that thing. Um, Outside of that
Do you know
specifically,
if I do use that step, is it using the RAM on our system for the cache?
that I'm not 100% sure on.
Okay. Because it's like a big part of it. Like I want to make sure I'm not like I'd rather store this in, you know, the actual storage rather than the system's memory.
Yeah, yeah. This might be useful to try out. We actually have,
Yeah, just like I have platform version 9.3.
got it. Yeah, so then those specific steps you won't have. But what I have here, um, I actually have something that you can use.
That's cool.
Um, yeah, sorry. So, there is actually this that I just put in the chat. Um, this is an example lab that we have of it's from an older version, but it shouldn't it should be fine for like just testing or giving like a good example. But it actually has like a method that uses to actually cache data from a flow. So you might be able to try checking out that and seeing if that will uh maybe give you an idea of what to do. And I know it if you ever upgrade, then those steps might also become or make this a little bit easier to just easily just throw something into a cache and then be able to grab it. But that's again, that's at a later, it's 9.6 that those got added, so you'd have to upgrade beyond that. And if you're not ready to do that, obviously that wouldn't work. Um, I think that's the main thing. There's other settings for caching, but I can't remember off the top of my head what other like how exactly or where those are. Um, but there are different ways that you can do that. I believe that that example lab that we have highlights that a little bit so that you can actually try to grab and test those things.
Okay. Just in case I can't do that, is there a way to set up like data to drop from a table held in decisions automatically after a certain time period?
Drop data after a certain time period. If you do, I guess you could maybe, um, if you do want to like save, you could maybe have some kind of like scheduled job in the back end that would like run and see like check the data on this on some table and see if the like created or saved date is more than 24 hours, then it deletes it. Something like that. Like I don't think there is a, as far as I'm aware, there isn't just like an automatic drop or delete this data from a database table. Um, like automatically, you'd kind of have to build that into a flow to with a rule that would check to see what the date is, like the date of creation of that data, whatever that data got saved. And then if that data does get saved like 24 hours ago or whatever, then delete the data. And it would just, that rule would just check that for every single item in your database. Um, Sounds pretty complex. I think our cat we definitely have more caching options. And if you're still having trouble, if that's not quite enough, the support team should definitely be able to help you find the more specific ones you're looking for. Because it seems very inefficient to save to a database just to do what caching should be able to do.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, we got another question here from Justin. And that question is, I have a general question. Is there a good way to make a form that can go between forms via a list along the side, similar to the tab container, but cross with how tiles work in Pages? Asks since decision gives you a bad health score for having overly complex forms. Got it. Okay. So, I guess I should clarify then before. So you're saying that um, the tabs isn't quite what you're looking for then? Is that what you're saying?
Uh, it's more that I'm trying to. Uh, the tabs are fine. I just wanted to try and simplify what each form is kind of doing, and so I wanted to be able to like break it down. However, tabs obviously mean everything is in one form still, and so
Hmm.
I was kind of wanting to break it out. However, when I tried like a few options, but didn't really find one that worked very well.
Got it. So kind of like you have multiple or like a series of things that they're all connected, so you still need them to be connected, but to have each of them kind of simple be more simple, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, have this isn't I don't know if this is exactly or close, but we did this for one project that we've had. Um, that works like this, where it's like a form. It's similar where it's like a pretty complex. There's a lot of stuff in it, but it's like a three-part form. So we have like these three sections, and we actually have this. There's a tool called a form control called the horizontal timeline that you get placed on here. That we just can manually change so that it changes and looks like it's on different pages. But essentially, when you fill it out, um, grab some things in here real quick. Uh, you hit the next button and it opens up a brand new form. And then on this form, we actually just have a back button that just goes back to the previous form. And so these are just built on separate forms so that you could easily just jump between the different like options. when you go between like the different things, so then you can move on there, and then you can easily just travel back to the previous versions of the form, and all the data stays on those. So any data that you have created will just go back, so it saves. So we have something like this. This is literally just three separate forms, completely separate forms that have a next button and a back button on it. And on the back path, you just send it back to the previous form. Um, and then it'll just like in the flow, it does this exact thing. So if you're trying to keep like separate forms simple and you still want to be able someone to be able to navigate, there's a couple ways you can do it kind of like this, where they can just easily go backtrack. And if you want it to be a little bit, less of like back next, but have like options, like to skip to page one, page two, page three, page four, page five, you can still do a similar thing to this if you want and just have like different buttons on it that would go to those things. So like if I wanted this, like right now it just has next and back. You could easily just make another button that goes, page one or whatever, something like that. And then what that does, that just simply creates a new pathway now on your flow that you can send back to page one. So like something like that might work. I think the tabs is really the only like real way that it's meant to do that kind of thing. Um, or like the one that's like it's by design meant to have be able to like put multiple forms within a form. So I don't think we have anything that like explicitly um changes that aspect. Um, I guess you have the set if you want the visual to be like on the side. There's a side menu container that's the same as tabs, just on the side. So there's that option as well. Um, it's exactly the same as the tab container though. They're just on the side, and then the form itself stuff would appear to the right of the things. But it functions the same way as tab containers, so it shouldn't change that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's what I ended up on since I couldn't seem to find a good way to do like multiple forms.
Yeah, I think that's probably like this is probably the uh, nicer way to do it. The other way that this project has, I think, is an okay way to do it. I think this is probably the most user-friendly, better option. But I don't know how that affects. I mean, I don't know for sure how it affects the health scores. I feel like separate tabs should count as separate forms. I don't know if that's the case though. Um, I mean, does that at least help enough or answer enough, or did you anything else I can
Yeah,
expand on it?
yeah, I don't know the answers enough.
Okay. Okay. I'm double checking on our doc site. It looks like I think labels are the only things that don't actually get counted as form controls for the health score for assessing the size. So yeah, I don't think tabs will actually directly. I think multiple items between tabs might still count as one giant form, which seems a little odd to me, but maybe that's I guess I'm not one of the designers or anyone that sets those values. So okay. All right. Any other questions for today? Well, I don't. Okay, I think that's everything we have for today. I still don't see. I tried looking up, and I don't think we explicitly have anything that states the exact location of that. The explicit location of the that table for um that table name for the auditing options. Anywhere that I see it, it just explicitly says edited audited entities table, but it didn't look like that changed anything when I tried saving or making adjustments. So I'm not 100% sure why or what exactly that is or why that would be incorrect. Or like why nothing would be like appearing there if I make changes or something. Um, so I'll do this like one last thing real quick just to see if anything changes, but I'm not 100% sure what that is. What am I missing here? I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess I'll have to ask and figure out more about that. I don't know why that doesn't get any changes to it when you make any save new data or anything. Normally that does affect it. That's just reports. Yeah, audit settings. That's just something else. It's just audit settings. Huh. Yeah, I'm not sure. Not 100% sure. I know the rule audit history stuff works. That just does any specific rules that you have trying to audit. I've used that quite a few times, and that works just fine. That's specific to rules. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll have to take that off and see if I can find what's up with that and what it actually gets sent to, if it even is getting sent anywhere, or properly auditing. But otherwise, if we have no other questions, we'll go ahead and end our lunch and learn for the day. So, if anyone has any additional questions, anything that you're curious about, we will continue. We got one more day of lunch and learn tomorrow, so we can discuss more if anyone has any further questions. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see y'all tomorrow.